We're live.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I must say all of those things across time because we have folks from so many time zones joining us today, live here for Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Today, it's our Sunday special. And honestly, it couldn't get more special than this, a reading from that luminous city by the bay on the United States Pacific coast, and a magnificent beacon for poetry over really the decades, the centuries. And of course, I am talking about none other than the incredible city of San Francisco, where today I'm just truly, truly ecstatic to welcome our Cultivating Voices Live member, Diane Frank, the founder, editor at Blue Light Press, and the editor of the anthology that we feature today, Fog and Light, San Francisco through the eyes of the poets who live here. We're going to hear today from a beautiful cascade of poets reading from the anthology, including Abby Caplin, George Wallace, Phyllis Klein, Will Walker, Angie Minkin, Karen Poppy, Susie Meserve, Alice Rogoff, Bobo Soleil, Barbara Quick, and Vince Gotera. I'm Sandy Yannone, your host and author of Boats for Women from Salmon Poetry, and I'm joining you today a little north in Olympia, Washington, the Pacific Northwest, for today's reading, which really showcases just exquisitely diverse themes from breathtaking poets from all across the city, their perspectives. Well, and speaking of breathtaking, I want to send my thanks out to last week readers in our new book showcase, Hilda Raz, Jean Dubrow, Alana Bell, and Minnie Bruce Pratt. It was such an incredibly moving reading. And of course, you can go to the recording for that reading, as you'll be able to, for this reading, to listen in and see what you missed if you were not able to join us last week. Welcome, of course, to all of you joining us live today in our Zoom room. And of course, hello to those of you watching us from Facebook. Well, since March 2020, we've been providing a weekly virtual reading for our almost close to 3,000 members worldwide in our international, intersectional, and intergenerational Facebook group. I certainly hope that among the many books that you've likely bought through your listening pleasure here on Cultivating Voices since March 2020, I hope today you'll add Fog and Light. We will be putting the links to the collection in the chat. And of course, check out the individual poets as well. For their collections. We have an accomplished group of poets reading today with probably close to 100 books. I'm not exaggerating, there's probably 100 books published between them, individual collections. So check out their websites as well. Well, before I introduce you to Blue Light Press's Diane Frank, I also want to acknowledge two other poets from the Bay Area, from San Francisco. In the past month, San Francisco lost two of its former or emerita poet laureates, Janice Mirikitami and Jack Hirschman. Jack Hirschman's passing was just this week. Janice, of course, read with us in May for our reading Witness, a conversation with 3 Asian American poets, where she was in conversation with Mary Owishi and Tanya Ko Hong. And those of you, some of you were with us that day, you know what an absolutely transcendent experience that was. And Janice's voice resonated very deeply and continues to. And of course, Jack Hirschman is featured in today's anthology and was truly at the center of every significant wave of poetry in the Bay Area during his lifetime. So what better way, I thought, today to honor their legacies than to dedicate today's reading about the city they helped shape through their poetry and humanity, with poets, a press, and an anthology that does the same. And with that, let me introduce you briefly to Diane Frank, editor of this anthology that we really are celebrating today, Fog and Light. In addition to Diane Frank's visionary work at Blue Light Press, Diane on her own is the author of 8 books of poems, 2 novels, and a photo memoir of her 400-mile trek in the Nepal Himalayas. Her new and selected poems, While Listening to the Enigma Variations, is coming this year from Glassfire Press. And I love this. Everyone here has such amazing prismatic lives. As if she didn't sleep doing all of those things that I've just mentioned, she also plays the cello in the Golden Gate Symphony and teaches at the iconic San Francisco State University. Diane, thank you for bringing all of us together and for shedding light on the city of San Francisco through poetry. It's such a great pleasure to welcome you.
Sandy, thank you so much. I want to start by thanking you for inviting us, thanking Don for all the technical support for this series, and thanking Kim for the wonderful poster that you created. 3 weeks ago, a number of us who are reading today read with Jack Hirschman. I mean, and within a week later, like, poof. And it's just so fitting that we're dedicating this reading to him and to Janice. Jack was so helpful to me when I was gathering the poems. I mean, he had contacts with all of the former poet laureates. He put me in touch with them. When we had some technical difficulty getting into City Lights in San Francisco, he just took his book, walked down there and asked them to order it. I mean, it was just, I just loved all of the communication and correspondence. I have just arranged for the planting of 2 trees for Jack and his wife, so the earth will remember them. So I'm going to introduce the book with a review by Joan Gelfand and a few of my own words. And this is from the review. A lot has been written about San Francisco. It's too expensive. It's all techies. The homeless problem makes the city unlivable. But please don't write the great city's obituary just yet. San Francisco is on the map for being the cool gray city of love, and there is still a lot of love to go around. In Fog and Light, San Francisco, through the eyes of the poets who live here, we hear compassion for the homeless. We explore the magic corners of the city, and we hear the voices of the poetry community and how vital it still is. And of course, we hear about the stunning beauty of the city, the ocean and the hills, the views and the expansive feeling one gets in these inspiring locations. Our book features poets who have made it onto the national and international literary map, as well as poets you may never have heard of, but whose work will take your breath away. A great book to turn to for a dose of magic, an elixir of love and hope. We're going to start with a tribute to Jack Hirschman. I know his voice will live on. He is one of the best poets who has ever written in this city. So Angie Minkin will read one of his poems from Fog and Light, the Greta Arcane.
Thanks so much, Sandy and Diane. I'm so thrilled to be here today, and also just really moved that we're dedicating this reading to Jack and to Janice. It's a beautiful thing. So here we go, The Greta Arcane by Jack Hirschman. 1. Not even the face of Garbo in Ninochka, a decade after the start of talking movies, could find its way to be a painted mural on a wall at Mason and Post Streets in downtown San Francisco, where the face of Greta Thunberg is realized by the Argentinian muralist Andres Iglesias, who signs his work with the name of Cobre. He's caught in his image of the teenage activist who's won the hearts of the young and old of the world for the truth of her activism, for the necessary demands, for the climate changes necessary to save the environment from certain destruction. And her "How dare you" is repeated on the lips of teenagers and adults all over the world who are duplicating her standing before the United Nations and insisting that the racketeers of the globe put down their money, begin to deal with the nature that's choking from their greed, that's deafened them to cries of human animals everywhere. 2. I'm one of the 80-year-olds who cheers that girl, for her courage has lit up the screens of all the computers in the world with a cause that's essential, which should be addressed by those who know the environment is in the greatest danger of its life. And in the heart of that young woman who seeks no prizes, thinks attachments of fame to her are ridiculous absurdities, I also see unforgettable Greta Garbo in Ninochka, a woman of the Soviet Union who'd have nothing to do with capitalism's antics, who wore a face of clear, defiant certainty, glowing with a truth of cause that wouldn't be tricked or fabricated away. And hearing that dedicated, intense affirmation of necessary truths in the brilliantly direct words of Greta, Tintin, Eleonora, Erdmann, Thunberg, I am humbled by the quiet glory of the women of my life and of the world who can, at any apt moment of injustice, become thunderers of bluntness, facing the need to be done with the evasion, exasperating those resonating with "How dare you." Thank you.
So inspiring to hear his poem out loud. Just a while ago, he read it himself, and this is an affirmation of how his voice is going to go on and on and on through other voices. Our next poet is Abby Caplin.
Hi, thank you, Angie. That was such a magnificent reading and beautiful. So anyhow, I have, thank you, Diane, for including 2 of my poems in Fog and Light. But I also want to acknowledge Sandy, Don, and Kim for hosting. So thank you. The first poem is called Bird and Beckett Bookstore, San Francisco, which is a bookstore that's in Glen Park here. It's been too long since I visited, a crammed confabulation of living and ghosted writers, still chattering away their thoughts through whiffs of inked fonts. Pound and Hausman huddle under the blistered windowsill, where flies lie posed in savasana, eternal rest, after skittering a few days through the stacks. And above those indignant teachers who, when I don't take them to the checkout counter, will cuff my unschooled hand, I see a stuffed pine box with its dozens of little ones straining for new life, oblivious to their epitaph, carved with a felt pen. Chapbooks, if not otherwise marked, $3. And the second poem is on page 30. It's called Dog Path at Fort Funston, which overlooks the Pacific Ocean. This modern wooden deck hanging over blue steel water will turn to driftwood like those World War II bunkers hunkered down the path, blood rusting and fits of Golden Gate Bridge International orange, like the last bank swallows nesting below in sandstone. The ocean thrums its goatskin elegy to white noise slicing the sky from SFO. Lexi's breath stinks like dog, which she is, gray and chesty. Her black nails quickly rip a hole in my journal. She wants to know what I'm doing here, dogless. Her owner pushes an empty stroller, the baby strapped to her back. Then they are gone, exploring the carpet of pesky ice plant, its bitter figs. We are all confused. Thank you.
Abby, thank you so much. I just love your poems. Is Bo Beausoleil here yet? He's been having some trouble getting in. If you are, unmute yourself and please talk. And okay, I'll come back and check. He is still having some trouble getting in. George Wallace, please read to us.
Okay. Well, thank you, Diane. Thank you, Sandra. It's a wonderful collection of people here today. I'm calling in from New York City, but considering myself an honorary Northern Californian, having lived in San Francisco on 2 separate occasions, visiting almost every year and doing a workshop with you, Diane, through Blue Light Press, a recent book out. So I really feel like San Francisco is one of my homes as I travel through the world, one of the major places that I live in, and a very special place to all New Yorkers, including, as it was to Jack Hirschman, who was from New York, and Diane DePrima, who we also lost recently, a New Yorker, and Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who we also lost recently, a New Yorker. So I mean, we have a very strong connection. So I'm honored to be in this book and to contribute my one poem. It is actually a person in the city thinking about what it would be like to live further north in a place called Stony Creek. Here in San Francisco, people take care of themselves. On the farm where you grew up, everything takes care of everything else. Cows take care of horses. Horses take care of men. Men take care of barns. Plows and tractor engines. Tractor engine parts take care of each other too. Bees take care of clover, and clover takes care of bees, who are also taken care of by beekeepers. And the fields are alive with California poppies that wobble in the orange-yellow breeze. I don't know how these things work. I'm just a man in a city. I'm lucky if I can even take care of myself one day to the next. But I try as best I can, and I leave the rest to chance and dream that we don't live here at all, you and me, that we live up the coast in a place called Stony Creek, Del Norte County, California. We have milk coats, chickens, bees. We have strong children. We teach them right. We send them on their way. We have eggs and cheese, butter and milk. We've got ducks in a duck pond, an old fishing boat with a leak in the hull. In summer, there's long grass for mowing. And in spring, there's short grass for making love in under the yellow California sun, yellow of marigolds, yellow of your hair. And sometimes you admit it. You had a boyfriend back in the day, a farm boy. Even now, when you braid your hair with wildflowers, you sing songs you learned from him. And I skin my knuckles on spark plugs and chromium steel, and I do not mind that. And often in the morning, I stop to smile because you've made some little present for me with your perfectly strong hands, left it on the kitchen counter. This is my dream. I didn't wish to ever be free of it. In fact, I had it just the other night, my dream. You and me. We drove up the coast to the Oregon border. We left San Francisco way before dawn. By the time we hit Stony Creek, it was morning. The fields were cool with Pacific fog. And all the way there, you sang songs that farm boy taught you. And all the way there, I fell in love with you over and over again, because that's what I do in my dream about Stony Creek. I fall in love with you, like the first love, like the first spring, like any ordinary old man from a city would do. Because I know what love is. Love is a field of tall yellow grass with orange or yellow poppies waving their full heads off in the Pacific Ocean breeze. Love is clover for bees, bees for clover. Love is a place called Stony Creek, and you braiding long strings of wildflowers in your golden hair. Thank you.
George, I'm so smitten with that poem. Every time I hear you read it, I like it more and more. And that's true for so many of your poems. And you are absolutely the kind of poet who had to live in San Francisco at some point. And regarding all of those poets who recently left, a week ago, I had the sense that there was a huge welcoming party for Jack when he got up to where he was going. And I had the feeling that my dad was there as part of that welcoming party. Our next poet is Phyllis Klein.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much for including my poem in your wonderful anthology and for inviting me to read at this amazing reading that I'm learning about. And thanks to everybody involved in that, Sandy and everyone else. I see some friends here and a lot of people I don't know. So I'm going to read my poem now. From the book. San Francisco during the pandemic. In a way, I miss the walk between the rickety parking garage on Eddy Street over to my 9th floor psychotherapy office in the Flood building. Scent of garlic wok fried vegetables mingled with rotted food. There's the Tenderloin abutting Union Square in 1 block from single room occupancy hotels, small grocery markets, to Nordstrom, and Bloomingdale's. In a way, I'm still there, navigating around the street people, checking out the jewelry vendors. I'm on the way to the recliner chair I searched for so it would cradle my lower back. The orchids that would have been there if I had bought them are blooming in fuchsia and white. Cable cars turn outside the window, drowned out by illegal street music, occasional protest marches, more numerous now. How many times I walked up Nob Hill following the tourists on the famous cars, turned left at California Street to Grace, cathedral that thinks it's in Paris, closed. But now I amble quiet tree-lined streets, even redwoods in the front yards, visit the HP garage with a historic plaque on Adderson at Waverly. It's shut me down in a way. My car in the driveway points north like a hound on a leash. But I'm not going there, the place I fell on the corner of Eddy at Cyril Magnin, lunchbox, briefcase, nosediving like missiles around me. The sale rack downstairs at Anthropology, where I got a text message from my sister about our mothers eating less and sleeping more. The walls of my office, they're echoes of the secret gifts I listened to. The feelings painting our atmosphere in greens and blues with occasional red and black slashes. Is it still there? The world of my days as it shifts, shimmers, almost a mirage. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. I love the way this book comes alive in the voices of the poets who created it. Our next reader is Barbara Quick. Barbara and I have a common love of classical music and the San Francisco Symphony. If I ever see tourists on a streetcar when I'm going there to usher, I will try to tell them to go to the symphony that night. I let them know how to get last minute tickets. Barbara, you're on.
Thank you so much, Diane. Diane and Garrison Keeler share the honor of making me a professional poet. I've been a novelist for most of my adult life, and when she launched my chapbook of poems this year, Diane gave my voice, my poetic voice, a public place to speak. And I've been very honored to be in this anthology and a new one that she has forthcoming. So Blue Light Press is, gets kudos from me. My connection with the San Francisco Symphony is that I'm married to it. My husband of the last 10 years is a violist in the symphony and has been for many, many moons. And the symphony community, his community, has become mine as well. I'm so grateful to those musicians, and I've gone to so many performances. And I wrote a poem that was a tribute to them, and it's called Sitting Above the Orchestra. Sitting above the players, borne aloft by the music, a hawk soaring above a warm-toned sepia forest of stringed instruments that may have sung together long before they were caressed by these hands that guide the bows and dance on the fingerboards. Fingers of the left hand pressing strings and shaking like the wind that once shook the autumn leaves of the maple trees cut down to make the backs and sides of the basses and cellos, violas, and violins. the wind that first coaxed music from the trees, long before a luthier traced the grain of nature's song with plane and saw, rubbed as if at a magic lamp with sand and oiled rags, varnished to a brilliance tight enough to hold the highest notes that wrap around the heart and squeeze. Lowest tones that echo the pleasure-laden moaning of the breeze. The tops of those instruments, the best ones, made from spruce that grow in far northern lands, evergreen until they die, trees that live for many centuries, then live again, held with skillful hands against that secret place between neck and chin that's also sought by babies, a place where on violists and violinists, the skin is calloused and scarred from a lifetime of practicing, marked like the bark of a tree that has rubbed against another for years in the wind. Who ever thought of going to Brazil to harvest Pernambuco for the bows? Who lit on horses' tails to hair those bows that rosined, stroke the strings with just the right amount of sticking and sliding to make the music soar like a hawk, higher and higher till the last sweet notes disappear? It's clear, looking at the men and women clothed in black and white and tails, their faces marked by life, and some of them with hair gone white, that they themselves are well along on the path to becoming trees, growing leaves, holding snow and giving back to the wind the gift of their virtuosity, their instruments to be held and loved and coaxed by younger hands to make music again. Looking down, the hawk sees only forest, past and future trees. As it's borne aloft by the sound, sees the musicians as one with the instruments they play, for whom they've honed a lover's skill to fill the concert hall with music written by composers possessed by inspiration, breathing in and writing down eternal notes gathered in the dangerous dark where truth is found.
Barbara, I love that poem so much. I have a writing habit of starting poems on the program of the San Francisco Symphony during concerts, and it was so lovely to know that you do this too. The title poem of my new book, While Listening to the Enigma Variations, began during a San Francisco Symphony performance of Elgar's Enigma Variation. Our next poet is Will Walker, San Francisco resident, right now here from Provincetown.
Hi, everybody. Hope you can hear me. The poems I'm going to read are both in Wednesday After Lunch, which is a Blue Light Press publication. So thanks, Diane. I've got a second collection through Blue Light too called Zeus at Twilight. I'm a little rusty, so bear with me. And yes, a fan of less is more. So here we go. The history of possibility. She sits in the cafe gazing across the street at the Muni stop and the wet newspaper racks and the tracks shining in the morning sun. And she twirls a strand of dark brown hair in her left hand behind her head, twirls it through her fingers as if weaving hair into daydream, counting time with this resilient strand that seems almost to be dancing with her hand, or coiling like a snake or a ribbon around her fingers, then springing free and starting again. This could go on for hours, a little perpetual motion machine. But suddenly she stops, stands up, and walks a step to meet the plain young man in the blue pea coat strolling through the door. I want to say, don't waste this morning ordering eggs and drinking orange juice, but you will, because the casual beauty of the young, the light that shines through the skin, the sheen in the hair is invisible to her now, eclipsed by the desire to become someone more. I feel like an angel standing at her shoulder, whispering in her inattentive ear, "This is it. Nothing you do will matter more than this." And this one's called A Camera Obscura. It has a little prose description at the beginning that sets the scene. Camera Obscura. A replica of Leonardo's invention, the camera obscura is a dark room with a periscope that focuses an image of the outside world on a white concave bowl. It sits in San Francisco, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. You don't start at the heart of it. You start sightseeing, taking friends around on a sunny afternoon. Stopping at the Cliff House, you peer at the ruins of the gigantic pools reduced to rubble like the foundations of Roman baths. Passing the gift shops and trinket stands, you walk down an ugly concrete stairway to a viewing platform perched on a rocky outcropping, looking out at a steamer or two in the wide, impassive Pacific. The camera obscura stands to one side, dressed up like an old boxy camera, a sideshow at a penny arcade. You pay your dollar at the CD ticket to the, you pay your dollar to the CD ticket taker at the door and feel your way inside into the funhouse darkness. In the little circular room stands a shallow white bowl the size of a tabletop, and in it floats a world much like the one outside, but refracted and sharpened to a soundless, immaculate image of itself. You've just been admitted to the antechamber of the angel entrusted with gazing at the world and watching in wonder as it dies each moment into a new birth. The waves along the shore speak eloquently of their rush to disappear into the sand. You stand in the dark, bumping into strangers now and then, as this device of Leonardo's rotates through a complete circle, as if showing you the earth meditating on its own detailed magnificence. Like the earth seen from space, the bowl is suspended in darkness. Like the earth in space, a canvas of light afloat in a void. A canvas of light, remaking itself with each heartbeat. Each moment, a new world, becoming an old world, becoming new. Okay, thanks. Peace. Peace out, as they say.
Well, thank you so much. Our next poet is Kathryn Santana Goldman.
Thanks, Diane. First, I want to give you kudos for including me in this, and many thanks for asking me many months ago to contribute my poems, and Sandy for sponsoring us, and Don for helping me navigate my earlier technical difficulties. Not that any of us ever have those, but I was sweating it a little bit to get in. Let me just provide a little context. I'm a second generation San Franciscan, so when Diane talked to me about adding some material to this anthology, I was delighted. And listening to everyone else's perspectives just enriches my appreciation for the city I grew up in. Each person that have been transplanted here, or George, you're on the other side of the country, you know, having your perspective is just delightful. The two poems I'm going to read that I contributed share my perspective with you growing up in San Francisco. So this is a little bit of my childhood experience here. And if you'd like to read along, they're on start on page 77. My first poem is 3rd Street Cowboys. I grew up in the San Francisco of immigrants. Color and language took a backseat to survival. Victory Garden backyards provided an arsenal against the hunger of dock strikes. Italians on one side, Mexicans on the others, Maltese, Irish, and Portuguese down the street. We bought salted cod for bacala from Mr. Chan at the corner grocery store. My grandmother's Italian backyard of produce, chard, tomatoes, zucchini, a canopy of fig, apple, and pear trees. Sunday dinner chickens in the coop. What we could not use, we shared. Anne and June, my next door best friends, were twin daughters of a Baptist minister who served the Bayview district with hallelujah praises to the Lord. 3rd Street, one border of Butchertown, was lined with slaughterhouses, connected by train tracks, our country's meat warehouse. Saturday mornings with my father on the 3rd Street Bridge, greeting South American cargo ships, watching their long-horned passengers disembark. Cowboys with lassos and chaps astride chestnut and black quarter horses, clomping down 3rd Street, leading steer to their slaughter. The San Francisco I live in now is occupied by citizens of Starbucks, Pete's, or Phil's, heads down, mesmerized by a screen. I feel like my grandparents, an immigrant in a strange new land, a San Francisco baron of Victory Gardens, 3rd Street Cowboys, and Mr. Chan. My second poem is called The Colby Street Slalom Skiers. When I was 8, we lived on a cloud-kissing hill in San Francisco that descended into a bustling T intersection. Using this backdrop for their reasoning, my parents told me I would not be getting a bike for my birthday because it was unsafe to ride on the streets near our house. As visions of a cherry red Schwinn faded into the tangled traffic at the end of our block, I invented a remedy to my disappointment. Organizing a group of my fellow bikeless friends, we hiked up to the top of our street. Each of us carried a metal roller skate. Looking down over our urban vista, we discussed potential courses, velocity, and escape routes. Then we began our construction. Opening our skates to their longest length, each of us carefully positioned a flat board 6 inches wide by 18 inches long across our own expanded skate and firmly wedged it between the toe and heel clips. Everything was secured in place by tightening the winglet on the underside of the thin metal skate. The finished products look like a short arm cross with wheels. Sitting dead center on our boards, with our legs stretched straight out in front of us, we leaned into the power of gravity and surrendered to the steep slope, using only our hands on the edges of the board to steer. Like Olympic slalom skiers, we slided over the sidewalk, weaving in and out of driveways, navigating the concrete and asphalt moguls with charmed agility. The true test of our skill was making the sharp left-hand turn into Mr. Gimignani's bushes on the corner to avoid being catapulted into the heavy cross traffic at the bottom of the hill. After earning our bruises, we all mastered the art of flying in the face of fear. I can't say the same for Mr. Gimignani's bushes. Epilogue. I never owned a bike, but as an adult, I took up hang gliding.
Thank you, Kathryn. So much fun to hear those poems. Our next reader is Vince Gotera.
Thanks, Diane. And thanks so much to Sandy and to Don and to Kim for hosting this event. And like Kathryn, oh shoot, I forgot something. I just posted an interview of me that has to do with my most current book, and that interview also shows or says how to get a book. And while I'm at it, because I'm sure I'll forget, Sandy invited me also to say something about, I'm reading for Rattle on Sunday the 12th. All right, like thanks. Okay, like Kathryn, I am. I think all of my poems in the anthology are about growing up in San Francisco, and so free ride. As a kid in San Francisco, waiting for a bus in morning fog to go to school, I would see the Sixth Masonic appear magically out of what was essentially a deep, soft cloud resting on the earth. The bus would shoulder its way through thick mist like a green and yellow triceratops, the loud hiss of its air brakes, a breathy sound, punctuating its slow approach. The slight ozone scent of the trolleys arcing above would counterpoint the salty taste of the cool air, wafting through the city from Ocean Beach, from the Pacific. Getting on the bus, I'd hold out the student Muni cardboard punch card, and the driver, big beard like a black Santa, rather than punching out one of the 10 rides, would click the air above my hand and card, a free trip. He smiled huge every morning, glad to be giving a schoolboy a boost. I bet that man is wrangling a Muni bus up in heaven today. Thank you. He didn't do that just for me. He did it for every kid that came on the bus. So we all rode for free every day. I also found out when I was visiting San Francisco recently that that people don't remember the Sixth Masonic, that the Masonic is now called by a different number. So I don't know. I guess I'm old. All right. The front door. The front door was a surfboard, speeding forward through the 60s, except when it slammed, stopping time like granite, if not for the glass pane in the door, which let in San Francisco's lights, the fog like gray cotton, screeching brakes, my friend Hart's house across Parnassus Street. But the door didn't stop time. Mom came in, said, "Hart is dead, Vin. Sorry to tell you." The night before, running from the police, Hart had driven off a cliff at Land's End, a joyride with a friend. Holy fuck. I could have stopped it when I was on the N Judah a month before and saw Hart with a coat hanger breaking into a VW. I could have got off, said, "What are you up to, Hart? Come on, give it a break, buddy. Let's go get a Coke." But the moment was past. The N Judah kept on, the steel wheels skirling on the tracks, twisting time into ribbons. I imagined Hart would stop stealing cars, throw down the screwdriver. But that time I didn't get off the streetcar and confront my friend. There was always time. Sometime I'll do it. I'll say to Hart, "Just stop, will you?" But that future day was spilled one. The taste of silver on the eyes, 9-volt batteries on the tongue, fingertips on the hot iron smelling like burnt toast. That logic was no damn logic. Nada. The KFRC record on my dresser, that album I had borrowed from Hart last year, said, "What you gonna do now, Chicken Heart?" I pictured myself at that cliff where Hart died, spinning that borrowed record into the sunset air, where it would sail forever, surfing to heaven in the future years Hart would never have. But I didn't do that. I didn't get off that streetcar. Moment passed, surfboard crashed, front door closed. And one more. This is my Doggy Diner poem. I hope that some of you who are longtime San Francisco residents remember the Doggy Diner. Place to build up a heart attack for later. Anyway, Doggy Diner, Geary and Arguello, 1969. Out of San Francisco night, the cool fog's gray fingers caressing hills and houses, emerged in chef's hat and bow tie, the dog, a 7-foot dachshund's head in fiberglass. Tina, my first real high school girlfriend, and I entered through the shiny glass doors, holding hands, both in hippie leathers, suede vests and floppy hats, bell-bottom cords. It smelled like hog heaven, grease-laden air, scents of amber gold fries and sizzling thick burgers, the sharp tang of coleslaw vinegar. We ordered dogs slathered in chili with pickles and mustard. The world was copacetic. Above the diner, the dog slowly turned, glowing like love. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Vince. Such a pleasure to hear you read again. We used to read together in Iowa, and now we're doing it out here because of this book. So our next reader is Karen Poppy.
Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for having me and publishing my poem in Fog and Light. It's such a wonderful anthology. And thank you, Sandy and Dawn, for having us with Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Your series is just excellent. I'm reading my poem, Marina Safeway, San Francisco, for Armistead Maupin. March 25, 2019. Pigeons congregate in an empty parking space, spilling over the lines. I stand for a moment as seagulls upset the still with their flight and cry, swirl the air gray. Then I go in and know not to Whitman, not to Lorca, nor even Allen Ginsberg. I hope to find Michael Tolliver traipsing through the aisles with Mary Ann Singleton, any of them, the Barbary Lane beloveds, still naive and new. Yesterday, my 43rd birthday, Lawrence Ferlinghetti's 100th. Everyone mobbed Columbus Avenue, city lights, like those parking lot pigeons, spilling over the lines, listening to poetry, words that fed a great generation, the beats. I'm sentimental about eras I didn't live in. In Marina Safeway back in the day, before tech millionaires, before the impending influx of more, before Mylar balloons now on display that choke our birds, our bay, before San Francisco changed over, I'd have roller skated my way between high pyramids of avocados and bananas, myself high, not waiting for their ripeness, not asking their cost or mine. Woken up blissful with anyone, not fearing death. That angel had not yet arrived here, unrolling a river, merciless and vast, on which you saw all your friends float by, wasted to bones, so young and afraid, dying one after another. Beautiful, then gone, just gone. Whitman, Lorca, these are your dead, your children. Do not turn from them. The bay is wider than a river. Is that optimism or sorrow? America lost even then. As we look forward, look back, was San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. That is such a powerful poem. From what I've heard back in the day, the Marina Safeway was a major pickup place and people would hang out by their favorite vegetables, seeing who they could meet. Our next reader is Susie Meserve.
Hi, thanks, Diane. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm going to read my poem that's in Fog and Light, and it was originally published in this Blue Light book, Little Prayers, which I published in 2018. And I'll just pop that link into the chat right now. This poem has sections, and I'll just sort of pause over the sections so you can get them. And it's called Fog. Morning. The raven-haired beauty with apricot hips sits with her coffee, reads. It's a false, cool day. A fog is coming in. In the cafe, the cook fries bacon, roasts beans, builds heat, and Ravenhair gets up to go. I wish she would not. I like her curls, but she flies away down Geary Boulevard against the thickening sky. Fog. I would like to view it under a microscope, smush the sputtering droplets between glass. Fog is only different from mist, reads the encyclopedia, for its density. Thick sheets close off Marin, hide the East Bay, obscure the Presidio, above which a bushy canopy of green, somewhere a road, and a gray grove of eucalyptus. Noon. Horn moans low over stones and sea. I wonder where it lives. Oh, and listen, there are two, one resplendent, one faint, like port and starboard or a near and far galaxy. I want the distant one to wrap its long voice across the waves, cross this ocean, and sing me to sleep. Lust. The man in the coffee shop, newly awake. I wonder what it would be like to live above something. The law, I think he means, or dew point, but he means a store or a deli. I think sea level and the 39th parallel, Hades, or the pinnacle where lightning begins to crack. Perhaps he means Ravenhair, hips anchored beneath him, 1,000 Corvus choruses winging across his pillow. Dusk. Waves collide, the lighthouse is shrouded, the man there flinches from ships. Even the gulls have stopped wheeling, the seas are too high. Night, night, oh morning. Fog. I want to have a good day, thought Ravenhair, disappearing into the curtain on Clement Street. I want to have a good day, thought the man, wondering how she would look in his bed. I want to have a good day, prayed the lighthouse attendant, as night became morning, and through a break in the curtain, he saw land, sea, and a ship passing through. I have a voice after all. I will sing to you from my tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. I remember the first time I heard you read at the San Francisco Writers Conference, and I had to get to know you. So our next poet is Alice Rogoff.
Thank you, Diane, for publishing my poems. I have 3 in the anthology, and thank you, Sandy and Don, for putting this on. It's been incredible. And Kim also. My first poem is Mission Street Station. Running for the screeching, sliding trains in the underground station, we all pass the street musicians in this year's windy, wet winter in the Mission, where mariachis pop in and out of Mission Street restaurants at night, collecting their tips, where mariachis usually stride in 3s and 4s. One lone mariachi and his guitar has taken up the underground's little aisle for musicians, a sombrero on his head, dressed in black, like a lost bird from the rest of his mariachi flock. He has become driven indoors by the weather into a station, looking more stoic and solitary than other street singers without a concertina, an accordion, and a big-bellied Spanish bass guitar, or looking like a man escaped from a painting framed by his hat, playing for coins. His guitar echoes through the countless people returning from work in the high arched cavern his notes merging with the train's long caterwauling screeches as his fingers singed the strings like lively dance steps, emigrated into this grotto, one sound or another claiming all of their souls. And my other poem in the anthology is called Windows. Peter balances on the ladder to wash City Lights bookstore's windows. It is a regular job. One must think that Ferlinghetti values very clean windows, books on ledges peering out, customers' noses peering in. In this work, there is nothing mechanical about finding the elegant curves of the glass and moldings. I remember my mother having a window washer occasionally clean the windows in our old house. In my new address, almost a railroad flat, there are hardly any windows. Windows are like eyes, and eyes are where the soul resides, and City Lights has the cleanest windows in town. And I have one more poem. It's a short poem. It's called Cold. At a bus stop on a cold day in San Francisco, in Union Square, grannies sing against war. A woman at a Mission bus stop asks where she can buy a blanket. I don't usually shop at big stores. She wants one nice, but not costly. I point to Cliff's 5 and dime. We do what we can to keep warm.
Thank you, Alice. And if you want to get in touch with the Haight-Ashbury Literary Journal, Alice is your go-to poet editor. So maybe you could put something in the chat about that. We have two more poets. Angie Minkin, you're on.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, Diane. Thanks for having me here. Thanks to Sandra and Dawn and Kim. And thanks, Diane, for including my poems in this anthology. It is so wonderful and such an honor to be reading with all these fabulous poets. So I'm going to read my poem about one of my favorite places in San Francisco, Ode to Alamany Farmers Market. And this one is 2020. Our farmers market is still a sanctuary of spring plenty. Blueberries, early peaches, Juan sings of white tulips. Rosie sells bachelor buttons bluer than my mother's eyes. I want to paint the creamy cassava melons, the broccoli piled in heaping mounds, the oceans of kale and chard. We still rise for our favorite Saturday ritual, but now we hide behind masks and gloves, wait in Russian breadlines. We zig away from those who zag too close until we realize they're old friends. We forage for the crispest spinach, the most fragrant basil for pesto and sauces. The farmers choose our produce now. No touching with bare hands. We learn to smile with our eyes. We bow in thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. I'm the final poet reading today, and I'm going to start with Mahler on Race Day. Along with being a poet, I'm a cellist in the Golden Gate Symphony. A few years ago, our conductor, without looking at the calendar, scheduled us to do a concert on Beta Breaker Sunday. For those of you who don't live here, it's a crazy race. Everybody in costume, people flying in from all over the country. It's an all-day party. And the only way that we could get from the outer sunset to the concert was by taking two cellos on the N Judah streetcar. My husband and I both play in the Golden Gate Symphony. So Mahler on Race Day begins with an epigraph from Gustav Mahler. I shall soar upwards to the light which no eye has penetrated. In Concert Black, we carry 2 cellos to the N Judah streetcar on Beta Breaker Sunday to play Mahler's Second Symphony. We take seats in the front of the train next to a unicorn, a dragonfly, runners in rainbow tutus, and a caveman with a leopard Santa Claus hat. Eric's tuxedo, bow tie, and hot pink cummerbund. Well, everybody's in costume. We sit across from a furry gray cat and an angel with a red, white, and blue halo. To my left, a couple holding hands and wearing the medals they got when they crossed the finish line. She's dressed like a bumblebee, fuzzy antennas waving from her headband. He carries a larger-than-life bouquet of sunflowers. More people board the streetcar. A 3-eyed alien, a troll with pink hair, human-sized mice and bunnies, a leopard with a fanny pack and a 6-pack. A woman who flew in from Boston tells me the Beta Breakers is her 73rd birthday party. We invite her to the Mahler concert. She started piano lessons at age 66. No mother to tell her a piano won't fit in her house. A family of bumblebees climbs into the streetcar with black antennas and black tutus. One of them tells me the wings helped her up the Hayes Street Hill. Standing in the aisle, butterfly hats, butterfly wings, butterflies. A cello isn't out of place in this crowd. I invite a butterfly to the concert, but she prefers early music. I tell her we played Beethoven's 9th last year. Beethoven? That's hardly early music. A bear in a fuzzy costume says that Mahler is so much better than the new music concert he heard last weekend. Sirens and pots and pans. The rainbow caterpillar agrees. Mahler has melody, chord structure, immaculate timing, and thundering beauty. Entering the streetcar, metallic space cylinder, svelte runner in orange neon shorts and rainbow snake earrings. Beta Breakers, 7.46 miles, a marathon up and down San Francisco hills from the Bay Bridge to the Pacific Ocean. Mahler, quite a workout, 27 pages in the cello part, allegro maestoso at the starting gate. My teacher's advice, at the downbeat, play as fast as you can, keep running. At Van Ness Station, exit the streetcar, up the stairs, down the street, cross the race at Hayes. Traffic signals help as we weave 2 cellos between the tutus. A few minutes before the call, we find the side door to the Herbst Theater and a friend who plays French horn for the San Francisco Ballet. Bill says, Mahler's Second Symphony at the Herbst Theater? Good for you, but is the building large enough to hold that piece? Curtain, conductor, start. It's under my fingers, and I keep intense focus as I play. Waves of beauty and mystery. The soprano soloist was one of the sent down children during the Cultural Revolution in China. She sang to keep herself sane, then emigrated across the Pacific to study opera. The mezzo, a Southern belle with honey voice and tango flowers in her hair, would do herself honors at Mardi Gras. It's a hauntingly beautiful and mystical piece from the opening run to our standing ovation. After the applause, after we really did this thing, in the aura of post-concert afterglow, Time to take cellos back to the outer sunset. On the streetcar, we sit inside a hive of bumblebees. A butterfly takes our photograph, tuxedo, and concert black, holding cellos. For the next week, Mahler, a fat moon, and rainbow tutus in my dreams. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting us. If you like what you heard, Fog and Light is available in bookstores all over the place, on Amazon if that's more convenient, but all the local bookstores in this area have it, and most local bookstores can order it, and we prefer the indies. So I'm going to turn this back to Sandy.
Diane, I cannot think of a better crescendo to the reading than having you read that poem from Fog and Light. And thinking of, I get all giddy and I light up thinking about and the bumblebees and the butterfly and just the exuberance of a day in San Francisco with cellos on the streetcar. And it also reminded me of really what the entire reading and the entire anthology of Fog and Light does like so well, which is literally like illuminate the depth, like the depth of the city, like the crevices and all the places and memory. And I'm reminded myself of, I grew up in Connecticut and my parents were not travelers. We like never left New England until I lived 2 hours away from New York City, and I didn't go to New York for the first time until I was 18 years old. And that is like a hop, skip, and a jump. And so in 1987 was the first time I ever went to the West Coast. And I went to Seattle and I made it a point to go to San Francisco. San Francisco was always a city, the city that I wanted to visit more than any other city in the United States. And I rented a car, a little compact car, and drove through all the different places of this, all the different neighborhoods of the city to get a feel of it. And that's what the anthology reminded me of that trip that day, that weekend, including a drive down Lombard Street that I then wrote a poem. I forgot I even did this. I wrote a poem in the shape of Lombard Street. So I want to give a grand thank you to all of our poets today. And before I have people unmute for a moment, I just want to also one more time share that we've dedicated this dear reading that brought us through poetry all through the streets of San Francisco to two of San Francisco's beacons of poetry, Jack Hirschman and Janice Mirikitami. So folks, if you wouldn't mind, please unmute and show your appreciation for this incredible cacophony of poetry that we had today.
Wonderful. Bravo.
That was great. Thank you, everybody. So if any of you have any upcoming readings or announcements, this would be a great time to type them in the chat as I'm sharing just some final remarks for today. like to remind everyone that Muriel Rukeyser writes, exchange is creation, and the human energy involved is consciousness. We try to do that every single week when we come together through these exchanges of voices, to create a world and a sense today of place, specifically San Francisco. Well, I hope you'll bring your poetry, your humanity, and your consciousness to exchange and create community with us. Not next Sunday, we're taking the Sunday off. A rare, rare Sunday, because we're coming back on Monday with our next anthology reading. It's our second annual Labor Day reading, Monday, September 6th, which is also Rosh Hashanah. It's our second annual reading from the anthology, Raising Lily Ledbetter, Women Occupy the Workspace, with co-editors Carolyn Wright and Eugenia Toledo, who will be joining us from Latin America, along with Dorothy Alexander, Elaine Cliff, Stephanie Friel, Maria Mazziati Gillen, Janice Harrington, Dorian Lau, Octavia McBride, Abi, and Elaine Sexton. It's going to be a grand reading, as grand as today, that supports our mission here at Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, to share poetry, to extend and expand our understanding and connections with each other. And truly today in our live audience in Zoom, we had people joining us from all over the world, really, as I said in the chat, from New Delhi to New York, to San Francisco, Alaska, from Dublin. We were many, many places today. Thank you so much for joining us. And later in September, you can also hear in our new book showcases poets from coast to coast, US, Scotland, and Canada. And we'll be having a wild card open mic where you can be the feature. You can always register for our Cultivating Voices live poetry readings on our event pages each week to join us live here in Zoom, as some of us have done today, or to watch us live from our Facebook group page. Again, thanks so much to the poets of Fog and Light, and to Diane Frank, our most wonderful, gregarious, and charming guest MC, bringing the poets together and bringing them to our stage, our humble stage here. Again, thanks to Don Krieger always for helping with our production and making sure everyone arrives at the reading on time, and to Kim Ports Parsons for her very vivid, iconographic graphics. This week, of course, none other than the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, our humanity has always and continues to depend on our deep listening of one another. So thanks again from the hearts of San Francisco. And this week and always, please take very good care of yourselves and your beloveds. And everyone, keep writing those spectacular poems. See you next week.